स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्. Hare Krishna. Welcome back to our Bhakti Shastri course. Now we are moving from Sadhana Bhakti to Bhava Bhakti. So the eastern ocean, the eastern side of the ocean has multiple waves. It's a Sadhana Bhakti. There's generally the first introduction to Bhakti is there. Then there's Sadhana Bhakti, and there's Bhava Bhakti, and there is Prema Bhakti. So in Sadhana Bhakti there was Vaidhi Bhakti and there was Raganuga Bhakti. So the major chunk of the wave of Sadhana Bhakti was Vaidhi Bhakti. There are a few chapters about Raganuga Bhakti. Now we are moving on to Bhava Bhakti. So Bhava Bhakti, Srila Prabhupada translates as ecstatic love. So chapters 17 and 18 are about Bhava Bhakti, and chapter 19, which will be the last chapter we discuss, will be Prema Bhakti. So let's look at Bhava Bhakti. So by the process of executing regulated devotional service, that is Sadhana Bhakti, one is actually elevated onto the transcendental stage beyond the material modes of nature. And then gradually, as the devotee advances, Prabhupada says that the devotee comes to the platform of Uttamadhikari, attains perfect devotion. And then Srila Prabhupada uses some interesting terms over here which you need to understand. Within the stage of regulative principles of devotional service, there are two devotions. There are two divisions, namely executive and effective. So let's see what this executive and effective means. So here we'll go back to the waves of devotion. So here we start with chapter 17. Let's look at the definition of Bhava Bhakti. So, Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma Prema Suryamshu Samya Bhak Ruchibhis Chittam Asrunya Krud Asau Bhava Uchyate. So, Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma. Shuddha Sattva is pure goodness. Visheshatma. So, the nature. So Atma can refer to soul, but Atma can also refer to nature. So because we have a spiritual nature. Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma. So Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma Prema Suryamshu Samya Bhak. Prema Suryamshu. So Surya is sun, Amshu is a ray. So Suryamshu refers to a ray of the sun. So here there is a implicit metaphor. Prem, love for Krishna, which is the final stage. This is Bhava. This is penultimate stage. So Bhava Suryamshu. Sorry, Prema Suryamshu. So Prem is like the sun, and Bhava is like the ray of the sun. Samya Bhak. Samya Bhak means similar to Ruchibhis Chittamasrunya. Ruchibhis. Ruchibhis means there are Ruchi's taste. There are various tastes that manifest in the heart of the devotee. And then Chitta Masrunya. Masrunya means there is softness of the heart that comes up by this. Krud Asau, that which causes Bhava Uchyate. So what is Bhav? Bhav is that, let's look at this one by one once again now. So Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma Prema Suryamshu Samya Bhak. Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma. So when there is pure goodness, Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma, that which has the characteristic of pure goodness. That is the first line. The second line is Suryamshu Samya Bhak, that which is like the ray of sun. And then Chittamasrunya, that is softness of the heart that results, along with various states. Ruchibhis Chittamasrunya. So let's look at these one by one now. So the first point, that is Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma. Now we know the word Sattva. Sattva is goodness. So there are three modes. There is Tama, Raja and Sattva. We discussed this elaborately in our Bhagavad-gita, especially chapter 14. So now Sattva and Shuddha Sattva are different, because Sattva is still material. Shuddha Sattva is transcendental. Shuddha means pure, uncontaminated. So in this world, even goodness is considered contaminated because still it is a material mode. Shuddha Sattva is not material, it is transcendental. And in Shuddha Sattva, there are two characteristics. What are those two characteristics? Now Krishna has many internal energies also. So among them, two primary energies are Samvit and Ladini, which are relevant over here. Samvit means, with means knowledge. Samvit means that which gives knowledge, the knowledge potency of the Lord. And Ladini is pleasure. So actually that pleasure is not just sensual pleasure, that is devotional pleasure. So that which gives pleasure through love and that which gives knowledge for love, that is Samvit and Ladini. Now Shuddha Sattva is said to be composed of these two characters too. In fact, if we see that even Sattva is also having two characteristics. There is Jnana Sangena Chanagha, Sukha Sangena Badhanati, Jnana Sangena Chanagha. When Krishna talks about introduces the three modes of material nature and he talks about goodness, he says it as two characteristics. There is Sukha and there is Jnana. And because both of these are material knowledge and material happiness, so they bind the soul to material existence. Sukha Sangena Badhanati, Jnana Sangena Chanagha. So now when we talk about this, a pure goodness, so there is pure happiness and there is pure knowledge. So that pure knowledge is the knowledge about Krishna. So when Shuddha Sattva is manifested, what happens is the devotee's heart becomes illumined with knowledge about Krishna. And that knowledge, that is, we can say cognition and affection. We want to use other words. So Samvit Shakti is cognition potency and Ladini Shakti is affection potency. That affection naturally being satisfaction. Now, whenever we want to do anything, suppose a person wants to say play a sitar. Now what all are required? First of all, there is knowledge that is required. Okay, how is that to be played? Then there is the instrument. The sitar also has to be that we played. And then after that, there has to be the person should have the desire to play, and that desire comes when there is some sort of pleasure. Either that person enjoys playing it or that person wants to play for somebody else and that person will appreciate or that person will pay or whatever. So there is some sort of desire which binds the person. That we could call roughly as affection. So we do that and we get some pleasure. So in any activity that we do, the knowledge of how to do it, there is the facility for doing it, and then there is the there is the attraction to do it, there is affection for doing it, which may be because we like it in itself or because we like something that we will get by that activity. So these three Shaktis can be understood thus, that they are integral to any activity that we do even in the material world. So Samvit means the knowledge of how to do something. So for example, now we are having this online course. So somebody wants to join the course, doesn't know much about internet. So first is one has to have knowledge. Okay, how do I go to a particular site? How would I turn on the video? Whatever. And after that there is Ladini. Okay, that is Samvit. I have to know. And then there is Sandini. Sandini is that which provides the facility. Okay, then I have to have some internet connection. I have to have some device which plays audio or video. And then after that there has to be the Ladini. Okay, if I am doing something, I should get some pleasure out of it. Otherwise I will not do it. And there is some, generally when how do we get a pleasure out of something? When there is some sort of relationship. We like something about that thing, then we get pleasure. So now all these examples are material. But in the spiritual world, when we say that there is pure love and pure happiness, how does that love and happiness come about? That is by Krishna's special mercy. But that Krishna's special mercy is not just amorphous. Krishna's mercy is personal. So all these three are actually Krishna's mercy only. Samvit, Sandini, Ladini are all Krishna's mercy. And they all enable us to serve him better and better. So Samvit is the Shakti which knowledge giving potency. Then and the Sandini, the facilities which are there, so that is not directly relevant to Shuddha Sattva. The facilities are there. Even the facilities in the material world can be used for serving Krishna. We can have a land and we can build a temple over there. We have our tongue and we can use it to glorify Krishna. So the facilities are anyway there in the material world. What needs to be changed is our knowledge of how they are meant to be used, and the affection that we have, the attraction that we have, we redirect it from the things of this world to the Lord who is beyond the world, to the transcendental Lord. So, Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma, at the stage of Bhava Bhakti, one's knowledge and one's affection, one's cognition and one's affection are redirected from matter to spirit. Not just spirit in terms of Brahma Jyoti, but spirit in terms of the supreme spiritual reality, Krishna. And when this happens, Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma. So just as one is spontaneously attracted towards worldly things and delights in worldly things in the conditioned stage, similarly, in the stage of Bhava Bhakti, one is attracted towards Krishna and one delights in Krishna. Shuddha Sattva Visheshatma, then Prema Suryamshu Samya Bhak. So Prema Suryamshu, that it is like a ray of the sun. Rupa Goswami also uses the word Prem Ankur. Ankur means seed. Just like from a seed, the whole tree blossoms. So like that, this is the seed of love of God. And so Ankur, from here the love of God will manifest soon. Suryamshu Samya Bhak, it's similar in quality. So actually between Bhav and Prev there is qualitative identity, but there is a difference in quantitative intensity. You know, a ray of light can also give some illumination, some warmth, but it is a very tiny level of warmth that we get. But when there is the full sun, then the amount of light that one gets from it is enormous. It is complete illumination that comes by that. So like that, now when we say that at the level of bhava, there is this, essentially the emotions that we are experiencing are pure spiritual, rich. They are connected with Krishna, but at the same time the intensity is not as much. Now we may think that, okay, as compared to a sun is so vast and one ray is so small, so then bhava is nothing very great. No, bhava is a very exalted stage. It is actually the stage way beyond anatha-nivritti, nishtha, ruchi, asakti, bhava. It's just before prema. It's a very exalted stage. And from the perspective of prem, it is lesser. But from our perspective, it is very exalted. And so Prabhupada calls that this level also as the level of Uttamadhikari. Now, Prema Suryamshu Samya Bhak. And then after that is described Ruchibhis Chittamasrunya. Ruchibhis Chittamasrunya means one gets taste. And that different kinds of taste one gets, and the heart becomes very soft. Soft means what? That whenever there are any devotional stimuli, immediately the devotee becomes flooded with devotional emotions. The classic example of this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now he would just see somewhere some river and he would think, oh, this is Jamuna, and he would want to go run and jump into that river and get the Sangha of Krishna through his beloved river, Jamuna Devi. So the Chittamasrunya. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not at the level of Bhava, he is at the highest level of Prema. But I'm just giving an example of softness of heart over here to understand the concept. Chittamasrunya. And then at that stage when this happens, then Krit Asau Bhava Uchyate. Krit Asau. When these things happen, then that is called as Bhava. So let's look at this a little bit more now. Now how can Bhava be invoked? So Prabhupada writes, there is, as I read over there, within the stage there are two, namely effective and executive. So here Prabhupada is using the words effective and executive. So executive refers to sadhana bhakti, and bhava refers to effective. Why? Because we have to, in the stage of sadhana bhakti, we are executing devotional service, we are practicing devotional service, so that by the practice of devotional service we move forward in our spiritual life gradually. And then there is effective. Effective means that which is the effect. So the Prabhupada is using the word effective here in a slightly different sense. Normally, effective we used to say that, okay, it produces the effect. But here Prabhupada uses the word, it is the effect. So what is the effect? The effect is bhava. So by the practice of sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti will come. By the practice of sadhana bhakti, which is the executive part of bhakti, we execute sadhana bhakti, and by that the effect manifests, that is bhava bhakti. So now, when bhava bhakti manifests and bhava bhakti is done, that can be done in multiple ways. So let's look at this over here. So bhava bhakti, so uttama bhakti, which is actually, it can be cheshta rupa and bhava rupa. Cheshta Rupa means by endeavors and by emotions. So I'll explain this. Cheshta Rupa, Srila Prabhupada talks about it in his summary study also, and we'll see where it's mentioned. Then in Cheshta Rupa, there is sadhana and there is sadhya. Sadhana is endeavors that cause bhava, and endeavors that are the effect of bhava. So endeavors that cause bhava, that is sadhana, and sadhya is that endeavors that are the effect of bhava. So here Srila Prabhupada is essentially Rupa Goswami is essentially talking about the different categories in which we can experience Bhava Bhakti. So Cheshta Rupa means one is endeavoring, and at that stage what that endeavor is not exactly like material endeavor that a person does to get material results. No, it's an entirely different category of endeavor. It's actually one already has very rich intense emotions for Krishna. Remember, this is already something which is achieved after Raganuga Bhakti, and at Raganuga itself one has spontaneous devotion. So this is more advanced than that, so it's certainly very special. So here Cheshta Rupa essentially refers to, so the Srila Prabhupada uses this word Cheshta Rupa to explain that one does Cheshta by which Bhava is developed, or one does Cheshta after Bhava is developed. That means there is the external aspect, the internal aspect. So the emotions are primary, then it is Bhava Rupa, and then Cheshta Rupa means the endeavors, the actions are primary. But either way, the important point is that this is all Bhava Bhakti. Now moving forward, so the primary characteristic is, so if we go back to the definition, Shuddha Sattva Vishesha Atma, Prema Suryamshu Samya Bhav. So like we discussed earlier, the primary characteristic and the secondary characteristic, the Swarup Lakshan and the Rasta Lakshan. So the primary characteristic is Shuddha Sattva Vishesha Atma, that there is the descent of the mode of goodness. And then Chittamasrunya, that the softening of the heart is the secondary characteristic. So these are both the characteristics of Bhava Bhakti. Now, how does Bhava Bhakti develop? So now there are actually, now Ruchi Chittamasrunya. So what are these three types of Ruchi? There is Prapti Abhilasha, Anukulya Abhilasha, and Sauhardha Abhilasha. So let's look at this one by one. Prapti Abhilasha, that is the desire to achieve Krishna. So one has not yet come in the association of Krishna till now, but one feels deeply attached. The Abhilasha, desire, is something which is a little bit, we have so many desires, but aspiration is a much deeper, it's a desire that is very close to our hearts. It's a cherished desire. That is normally the way the word Abhilasha is used. In English, the best translation of Abhilasha is aspiration. I aspire for doing something. So that what we aspire for is normally something very great, very wonderful, and then we hold it at a high pedestal in our heart and we cherish it. So there is Prapti Abhilasha, there is the desire to attain Krishna. Then there is the Anukulya Abhilasha, that is the desire to please Krishna. So now the desire to please Krishna, we can say that it is always there. Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. That right from the beginning itself there is Anukulya. There is the desire to, Bhakti is that which involves activity for pleasing Krishna. That is true. But here the realization of Krishna is much deeper. One is able to pursue Krishna as a person, and as a person one wants to do things that will please Krishna. So Anukulya Abhilasha. And then there is Sauhardha Abhilasha. Sauhardha Abhilasha means one wants to keep Krishna close to the heart. One doesn't want the thoughts to go away from Krishna. One doesn't want to forget Krishna at all. Earlier we see that, yes, one as a rule, one tries to avoid forgetting Krishna, which is good. But here one moves forward and to a deeper realm where Sauhardha, one has a very cherished desire that let Krishna always be very close to my heart. Let he never go away from my heart. Now after this, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, in his summary study, after the outward appearance of these external symptoms, they stay within the mind, and the continuation of ecstasy is called Samadhi. So Bhava means what? External symptoms appear, and then just like the example is given of fire. So if I take a rod and then I put it in fire, say I take a metal rod, then the rod starts becoming hot. It acquires the characteristics of fire. And as it becomes warmer and warmer and warmer, hotter and hotter and hotter, then not only does it have externally the same heat which the fire has, but actually internally also it undergoes change. So like that, when a devotee comes close to Krishna, the symptoms manifest, but along with that symptoms, the internal ecstasy also appears and the internal ecstasy stays. So that when that internal ecstasy becomes steady, and that is called as samadhi. Now let's look at how Bhava Bhakti is achieved. So Bhava Bhakti is possible by two ways: by practice and by mercy. So by practice and by mercy. Now what do practice means? Practice means sadhana bhakti. So we have discussed sadhana bhakti is in two ways. There is Vaidhi sadhana and there is Raganuga sadhana. So bhakti can be, the perfection can be achieved by Vaidhi sadhana as well as by Raganuga sadhana. We can come towards Bhava. Now he gives examples for each of these. So let's look at the example. Prabhupada first for Vaidhi sadhana, he gives the example of Narad Muni. Of course, Rupa Goswami gives the example and Prabhupada elaborates on it. Now, Narad Muni's story is fascinating because he was, Narad Muni's story illustrates so many of the principles of devotional service, and that's why when Vyasadeva has written all the Vedas and after that he's still dissatisfied and Narad Muni wants him to glorify pure devotional service. So this is described in 1.4, 5 and 6. Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th, 5th and 6th chapters of the first canto. So there, Narad Muni tells his own story, how I came to Krishna consciousness. Narad Muni tells his, how I came. And then when he tells it, he through his story demonstrates many of the principles which the Srimad Bhagavatam will illustrate later on throughout its thousands of verses. So one of those principles is that he was from a very low birth. He was born as a maid servant's child. And there is no mention of the father of Narad Muni. And yet, we see this maid servant, she still had, whatever be her background, she still had attitude of devotional service disposition she had. And when these great Bhaktivedantas came, she served the Bhaktivedantas. And seeing his mother, he also served them. And he served them very diligently. So that service bore great fruit. And they gave instructions. He heard very carefully those instructions. And he went Uchishtalepan Anumodito Dvijay. He took their Mahaprasad also. And then later on when his mother passed away, so he decided that let me follow what the Bhaktivedants have told. Let me go towards the north and become detached from everything material and absorb myself in Krishna. And when he did that, he practiced rigidly. So when he started doing rigid practice, Krishna appeared once and then Krishna disappeared. And when Krishna disappeared, then what happened? Then when Krishna disappeared, he was desperate. Oh, please come. Please, I want to see. Try to sit and do meditation again and try to replicate what he had done earlier, hoping that he'll be able to see Krishna again. But when he couldn't see Krishna, then he became very desperate, almost devastated. And then he heard a voice. No, keep practicing diligently throughout his life, and then in your future life you will have my constant association. You will be able to see me. You will not be able to see me in this life, but your practice will purify. And then what happened? No, this was not Narad Muni, this was Narada boy. That means in his previous life who he was. So this Narada, what did he do? Determinedly practiced bhakti, and by the practice of bhakti determinedly, he eventually attained perfection, such a perfection that Srila Prabhupada says is supremely liberated. He can come in the material world, he can go out of the material world to the spiritual world whenever he wants, and he can just fly. Not just fly, even our airplanes or even the spacecrafts that are there, if they have to fly, they need so much planning. You have to fuel and you have to check the engine and check the technical functioning of everything, and only then one can move. But Narad Muni just desires, and right from Prithvi Loka, he can just transfer himself to Svarga Loka. And he can come so quickly, and nobody can even detect. He's just right there immediately. So he has got such freedom. So he attained this, and Narad Muni is completely absorbed in love for Krishna. So how did he attain this? This was by Vaidhi Bhakti. So by diligent practice of sadhana bhakti, he attained, of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, he attained the stage of spontaneous love for Krishna. not this perfection of love, that is ecstatic love, as Prabhupada translated, Bhava Bhakti. Now, after describing this example of Bhava, then Prabhupada writes, now how does one achieve Bhava? Prabhupada explains this. When a realized soul who is engaged in the service of the Lord is speaking, he has the potency to inject spiritual life within the audience. One should therefore seek the association of such pure unalloyed devotees, and by such association and service, a neophyte devotee will certainly develop attachment, love and devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what will happen? Here he recommends primarily hearing. Narad Muni heard. So now we may say Narad Muni heard only for the 4 months when Chaturmasya was there. But what he heard, those words, he took them like treasures into his heart, and he cherished them over there, and he remembered them. Those words echoed in his heart, and he molded his whole life according to what he had heard. So he had to know about practice to achieve realization, but the seed for that practice was in the words that he had heard. Those words became the map for his life. So hearing is very important, and when we hear from Srila Prabhupada, we hear from great devotees, then that inspires us, and that inspiration may be conscious in terms of, yes, I feel like I should do it, or it is also subconscious in the sense that just by hearing those devotees, their desires are getting transferred to us, and when those desires are transferred to us, they become our desires become purified that way. And that is how by Vaidhi Bhakti one can get to Bhava Bhakti. Then by Raganuga Bhakti, Prabhupada gives the example of a lady named Chandrakanti. This is from the Padma Purana. So this Chandrakanti, what happened? The Padma Purana describes this incident that she came once to she was herself a devotee, but that day once she came to a temple and she saw a beautiful deity of Krishna. And when she saw the deity of Krishna, she was so overwhelmed by ecstasy, she started dancing with Divyonmad, the divine sort of madness. And she, normally when we dance in Kirtan, we may dance for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. After that we get tired. Physically, the body can only do so much dancing. But then, when the Chandrakanti, she was not just dancing at a physical level, she was infused with spiritual energy. And without stopping, she danced for the entire night. And what happened? Actually, because here it was not a Vaidhi. It is not that sometimes when Kirtans are going on, we are all told, you should dance. And then, because it is a discipline, we are told to dance, we dance. That would be Vaidhi dancing. But here she was dancing, there was nobody telling her to dance. She was so charmed by the beauty of Krishna in the deity form that she was just got captivated. And she started dancing. And she got actually the mood of the gopis of Vrindavan. So just as the gopis were dancing with Krishna, and the gopis were dancing for Krishna. And the Rasa dance has many aspects to it. Sometimes Krishna, so she was dancing for Krishna's pleasure, and she kept dancing throughout the night. And that dancing throughout the night, Rupa Goswami explains, is indicative of her development of Raganuga Bhakti. She was not Raganuga Bhakti, Bhava Bhakti. She has come to the level of ecstatic love, and energized by that ecstatic love, she's dancing constantly, fervently, unceasingly throughout the whole night. And then in the next chapter we'll see also how this Bhava Bhakti is characteristic of, her example of Bhava Bhakti exhibits one characteristic. It is called as Avyartha Kalatvam. So Kala is time, Vyartha is to waste, Avyartha is to not waste. So Avyartha Kalatvam means to not waste any time at all. So she was so ecstatic that she did not want to waste one moment in anything else. She just wanted to dance and dance more. That is Avyartha Kalatvam. And then, and Bhava can also be achieved by mercy. So now we discuss Bhava by practice. So in practice there was Vaidhi and Raganuga. Now we come to mercy. Now Srila Prabhupada explains, simply by speaking, simply by glancing, and simply by good wishes. So this refers to Vachika, Darshana Dana and Harda. This is what is mentioned over here. By words, by glances and by good wishes. So by words, by glances and by good wishes. What does that mean? That sometimes the Lord may speak, I bless you. And those words of blessing comprise, or they include, the potency by which the devotee becomes infused with Bhava Bhakti. And as a reference, a discussion between Krishna and Narad Muni is quoted, where Krishna tells Narad Muni that, I bless you with unalloyed devotion. So now we may say that actually, just now it was said that Narad Muni has attained perfection through Vaidhi Bhakti. So then how is same thing given for Kripa over here, that Bhava Bhakti being attained by Kripa through Vachika? No, it is not exactly talking about Narad Muni, it is talking about the principle. This quote from Krishna, this quote is given where Krishna is making the statement that I bless you with unalloyed devotion. So Krishna speaking those words, they are tantamount, they are performative utterances. Performative utterances means when they are spoken, the action will happen. Just like when a judge says, let this prisoner be hanged. It's a performative utterance. That means that utterance will lead to the performance of some action. Now, if an ordinary citizen says, let this person be hanged, nothing will happen. So that person does not have the power. So so that means the words that are spoken by Krishna, because he is omnipotent, they have power. So when Krishna just Vachika, Krishna says, may you have pure devotion, then that person will get pure devotion by that, Vachika. And then there is Darshan Dan. Darshan Dan means, so there is another reference given of how the devotees of Jangam Desha, of Jangal Desha, so what happened to them was that Jangal rather, what happened to them was that they got the darshan of the Lord, and here Prabhupada quotes over here. So here Prabhupada is quoting one by one. When the inhabitants of Jangal province saw the personality of Godhead Krishna, they were so stricken with feeling that they could not withdraw their glance from him. They could not withdraw their glance. So, what are they talking about? What is stricken? Stricken with feeling. Now, normally, the word stricken is used in negative sense. Stricken with, we say grief stricken. But then, this is the stricken basically, it doesn't have to be used in negative sense. Here it is used in a positive sense. Here the stricken means when there is extreme intensity in the feeling, the word stricken is used. So the devotees, they are so stricken with feeling in the sense that they are completely captivated by attraction to Krishna. So the devotees of the Jangal province, when they saw Krishna, so they did not have Bhava Bhakti before they saw him. But when they got the darshan of the Supreme Lord, then just by beholding the all attractive beauty of the Supreme Lord, they became attracted and they developed Bhava over there. That is the example given. And then there can be Harda. Harda means by heartfelt blessing. Now that heartfelt blessing can come from the Lord, or that can even come from the devotee. So here the example is given of Shukadev Goswami. So in the Shuka Samhita it is being quoted where Narada tells Sri Vyasadeva that you have a son who is the greatest devotee of the personality of Godhead, and I can observe that without any following of the regular principles of devotion service, he is already enriched with many of the symptoms achieved by the execution of devotional service after many births. So what does this mean? This means, now we know that Shukadeva Goswami was in the womb for a long time, and because he was so concerned that if I come into the world there is Maya, and that Maya will entrap me, so better I stay inside the womb only, I will not come out only. Then actually Vyasadeva told, no, you will not come out, you will get trapped, you will not get trapped. He said, no, still you are not ready to come. Then Vyasadeva beseeched the Lord, and the Lord came and gave an assurance that you will not get entangled, now you can come out. So at that time, that is described, sir, the Lord also told Vyasadeva that actually your son is exhibiting very great love of God. And that love of God which is being exhibited, that is, how did he get it? So it's equivalent to the love of God that is developed after many lifetimes of practice. So how has that love of God come about? It has come about by the practice of, it has come about by Kripa. So Harda, so Lord bless Shukadeva. And that's how Shukadeva Goswami got that ecstatic love of God. Now after this, then there are further other examples of love of God coming about in mysterious ways. So now there are two. This is the Harda can be from the Lord and the Harda can be from the devotee. So now here there is this Narada is addressing Yudhishthir. It is very difficult to describe the character of Prahlad. And then, so what is this example? This example might not seem very clear, but this is called, Prabhupada writes over, this is called natural attraction. It is caused by the special grace of the personality of Godhead or by the special grace of a great devotee like Narada. So what this means is that here what is Narada, what is happening is Narad Muni Narad Muni is telling that Prahlad has got such great devotion. Now how did Prahlad get that devotion? Rupa Goswami is explaining here that when Narada was instructing Prahlad's mother, Hiranyakashipu's wife, along with that Prahlad was in the womb, and Narad Muni was the well-wisher of both. And Narad Muni wished that this child, let him be a great devotee. And then what happened was, by that the great devotion Prahlad manifested. And similarly, another example that is given here is of Mrugari. So Mrugari was also, he was such a terrible demon. But when Narad Muni saw, why is he not killing animals like this? Not only half killing animals like this. It's a terrible thing to do. And Narad Muni desired, let this be reformed, let this person be reformed. And then what happened was, we know Mrugari became such a transformed person that he was not even ready to hurt ants. That is the tremendous character change that can come about in the person by the blessing of great devotees. So Harda, that is by heartfelt blessing. So now in this chapter, what all we have discussed? We discussed the definition of Bhava Bhakti. Then we have discussed the primary and secondary characteristics of Bhava Bhakti. Then we have discussed the ways in which Bhava Bhakti can be attained. So the primary characteristic of Bhava Bhakti was that it is Shuddha Sattva descends, and the second character is Chittam Ashrunna, that there is the experience of various emotions, rasas, Chittam Ashrunna, softening of the heart that happens. And then how does Bhava Bhakti come about? It can come about by Sadhana Bhakti, or it can come out by Krupa. In Sadhana Bhakti, what sort of Sadhana Bhakti can it bring it about? It can come about by Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti or by Raganu Sadhana Bhakti. And when it comes to Krupa, it can be Vachika, the Lord may speak it, and then by that it may happen in Darshan Dan, the Lord may give Darshan, and that may captivate the heart of a devotee. Or it may be Hard, there may be a heartfelt blessing that may be given, even when there is no utterance of that blessing directly. So this Harda is different from Vachika, because in these cases, Narada and Prahlad, or Narada and Mrugari, or even before that, the Lord and Shukdev, there is no direct speaking of the Lord with that devotee. The Lord just communicates. Actually, most of the time, Prahlad is in the womb, and even Shukdev is in the womb. Shukdev is not yet Goswami, there is just baby Shukdev at that time. So he's in the womb. So there is no talking between the two also. But that is the desire that also it's enough for the ecstatic love of God to manifest. So now after discussing this, let's go to the next chapter. So what happens in the next chapter? This is character of one in ecstatic love. Now this is a very important chapter, because this will differentiate between, so there are 9 characteristics that are described over here, and we'll look at the Sanskrit words also as Rupa Goswami has used it. And these characteristics, what is the importance of these characteristics to understand? That actually, when we say Chittam Ashrunna means softness of the heart. Softness of the heart can lead to tears. And one may say, oh, this person is having so much tears. The person must be very advanced, must be having a lot of love of God. So what happens is, how do we know this? How can we know whether a person has a deep love of God or not? So is it just by the presence of tears? There are 2 dangers with this equalization of outer tears with inner exalted love of God. With the equalization of outer tears with inner presence of exalted ecstatic love of God. Because it's possible that there may be imitators who may somehow get some tears, and they are getting those tears not because they have love for God, but because they want the prestige. And in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are incidents. When Haridas Thakur would be in ecstasy, there was a snake charmer. The person would be playing, and then Haridas Thakur would be dancing in ecstasy. But then another person came and started imitating, and that snake charmer just simply bet him off. Because he's imitating, that person just ran away from there afterwards, because he realized the imitation is not going to work. So now in that case, the person was discerning enough to know that this fellow is imitating. But it may not be so easy to recognize who is imitating love of God. So therefore, there may be external symptoms without the inner devotion. On the other hand, there may also be inner devotion, but that some devotees may not manifest that external symptoms. That's because actually the symptoms, the expressions of love of God, that is private. A devotee doesn't parade one's devotion to the Lord, and that's why the tears a devotee may cry in private, the tears of ecstasy. And therefore, one may not see in public the symptoms of ecstatic love. Then if this happens, then how do we actually know that a devotee really is in advanced stage? So there can be the presence of externals without the internals, and there may be the internal without the external. Without the external means specifically the tears and that sort of exhibition of devotional emotions, expression or exhibition of devotional emotions. So how can we know? That's why here in this chapter there are these symptoms which are sustained, which are exhibited over a period of time, and they are not very easily imitable. And these symptoms are a much more reliable guide of spiritual advancement. So for ourselves and for others, if somebody cries in ecstasy, we may think, oh, this person is very advanced. And that person may or may not be. We will discuss about whether a person is truly advanced or not a little bit later. There are different kinds of shadow emotions that can come about as abhas and chaya. We'll discuss that a little later. But here, let us suffice it to say that let's focus on the characteristics of one who has immense love for God. So first point Prabhupada makes is avyartha kalatvam. He's always anxious to utilize his time in the devotional service of the Lord. Does not like to be idle. Wants service always 24 hours a day without deviation. Utilization of time. Avyartha kalatvam. So we see this in the life of the Goswamis, where they would barely sleep for just a few hours, so that they could constantly be engaged in glorifying Krishna in every possible way. Just keep glorifying Krishna. That was their divine madness. Avyartha kalatvam. They could not live without glorifying Krishna. And same was with Srila Prabhupada. He would barely sleep for a few hours, and even at night, a whole day he would be speaking about Krishna, glorifying Krishna, making arrangements further for Krishna's glorification. At night also, for a few hours he'd sleep, and he would wake up and again start speaking about Krishna through the dictating, so that his books would be written. That's avyartha kalatvam. Then there is shantir. Shantir is that when a person is undisturbed, even in the presence of various causes of disturbance, he is called as reserved and perseverant. And Ganga cha Devi Dhrita Chitta Ishe Tammo Payatam. This is a very beautiful verse in 119:15. So here Parikshit Maharaj is exhibiting that perseverance. So what is that perseverance? Actually he is saying that, okay, I have been cursed, and let the snake bird or whatever that has been created by the Brahman's son, let it come and bite me. Gaya Vishnu Gatha. But you please speaking about the glories of Vishnu, and I will keep hearing the glories. And in that way, by speaking and hearing of the glories, I will be able to, by being absorbed in the glories of the Lord, I'll become transcendental. So here what is being exhibited is that normally when we want something, we want it, but when there are some difficulties, they say, okay, forget it. Even if I don't get it, I can't take so much trouble for it. So what happens is, there is our desire, and when some trouble comes, then you say, okay, forget it. I'll not do it. But when the desire is very strong, no matter how big the trouble comes, somehow we find a way ahead. So here, when there is ecstatic love of God, the desire for Krishna is so strong, so intense, that one doesn't perceive any, even no matter what obstacles come, one keeps persevering, somehow or the other, moving towards Krishna. We discussed earlier about how nothing holds a devotee back, a devotee holds nothing back. Nothing, we discussed this in connection with how a pure devotee's longing for Krishna is like a river going towards the ocean. Gange Vaughamu Danvati, as Kunti Maharani also says in 1.842 in her prayers in the first canto, that just as the Ganga flows towards the ocean, let my consciousness flow towards you. So this perseverance. And we see this again in the life of Srila Prabhupada. So many obstacles. His family was not very cooperative. Then his business did not work out. He had a magazine, people were not interested. He started an institution, and he was, by political conspiracy, he was driven out of the place where he was starting the institution. He tried to help his godbrothers, and his godbrothers had a narrow-minded vision. And he tried to write books, and he ran out of funds. Even when he wrote books, still people were not serious in taking up what he was giving. He decided to go to America. He got a heart attack on the way. Somehow he got to America, and somebody broke in and stole his typewriter. And finally he was staying at a particular place. Then he was not allowed to speak over there. Then he got his own place to stay, but then his room partner himself attacked him and was about to, came to him with almost a violent intention. So then Prabhupada had to flee from that place. So many obstacles, but Prabhupada was determined. Whatever happens, keep moving forward. Then there is Virakti. So Virakti, the example for this is detachment. Virakti or detachment. So here the example for this is Bharat Maharaj. So what happens with Bharat Maharaj is that he was completely detached from material things. And when he had that attraction, Uttam Shloka Lalasa, because he had the desire to attain the Uttam Shloka, the Supreme Lord. So what happened? It is said that everything worldly, he had opulence, he had beautiful wife, he had everything he had, but he just left it malavat, as if it was just like stool. So the example is very graphic, because generally when we respond to nature, we don't even look back, we just flush and go away from there. So like that, without even looking back, he just left. And that is the example of Virakti. And then there is Manashunyata, pridelessness. So pridelessness, Manashunyata. So here Padma Purana gives the example of Bhagirath, who was a great king, but he became a mendicant. And then he was so humble that he respectfully bowed before even his political enemies and untouchables. So that was the Manashunyata that he developed. And then Prabhupada gives the example recently of a big landlord named Land Babu, a Calcutta landlord, became a Vaishnava and lived in Vrindavan. And then this is how, the point is, it's not that everybody has to become a beggar. That's not the point. The point here is that when one has developed love for Krishna, one doesn't care for anything else. One takes cares only for serving Krishna, pleasing Krishna, and for nothing else. So for the sake of pleasing Krishna, even if one has to be dishonored, one doesn't mind it, because that is the way one is expressing one's love for Krishna. So we see that Nityananda Prabhu is himself the Supreme Lord, but he was going around begging, please chant the holy names. And Haridas Thakur was also doing the same thing when he was going with Nityananda Prabhu. So that Manashunyata. So a devotee is not at all concerned about man, a devotee is concerned simply about Krishna and pleasing Krishna. So this is not very easy. Imitators may very easily get tears. But to actually put aside one's own one pride and ego and do and humble oneself, it's not easy. And to do it day in and day out, year after year, that requires genuine love of God. Otherwise, one will not be able to continue it. Then Asha Baddha. Asha Baddha means one has tremendous hope that no matter what happens, Krishna will be merciful. I'll just keep practicing devotional service no matter what happens. No matter how many reversals, no matter how many limitations I have. Reversals may come in externally in my life. Internally also I may have limitations. I may have anarthas. But still, one day Krishna will bestow mercy on me. And then I will attain perfection. In fact, the Acharya described that the devotee should have such faith in Krishna, such hope against hope. Such hope we should have that even if Krishna himself comes and says, there is no chance for your spiritual advancement, still a devotee will continue on practicing. Why? Because the devotee understands this is a test of Krishna. And Krishna is supremely merciful. Nobody is hopeless. So a devotee has to have hope. And actually, if you don't have hope, then what does it indicate? it indicates that the result of that firstly will be that we lose the battle even before the battle begins. Because what will keep us fighting on against the temptations, against the distractions, against the tribulations, is our hope that yes, one day we'll develop love for Krishna, we'll awaken love for Krishna. So if you don't have that hope, then even before the battle starts, you think, what is the use of fighting? Anyway, I'm not going to succeed only. Let me just fall into sense gratification. That will be very unfortunate. So a devotee should have hope. And how do we get that hope? By looking at how the great devotees may have gone through great tribulations, but eventually Krishna redeemed them. Eventually Krishna delivered them. So, here he gives an example from Rupa Goswami himself, that he says, I have no love for Krishna nor for the causes of developing love for Krishna. I am only hearing chanting. And the process of Bhakti Yoga is also lacking in me. And then I don't have any jnana and punya also. And then I am not even born in a nice family. So then what is left for me? I simply wish and hope that some way or the other I am able to approach your lotus feet. And this hope is giving me pain because I think myself quite incompetent to approach this transcendental goal of the Lord. So this is Asha Bandha. So one knows that one doesn't have many qualifications, but still one keeps having hope. That is hope. Now this is eagerness for achieving this. This is Samutkantha. Samutkantha. Utkantha is eagerness. Samutkantha is intense eagerness. And the example is Bilva Mangal Thakur. I am eagerly waiting to see that boy of Vrindavan whose bodily beauty is captivating the whole universe. And then there is the description of the bodily beauty. And then through those lips come a sound vibration which drives one madder than a mad elephant. I want so much to see him at Vrindavan. So, this is Samutkantha. So, earlier also we discussed something similar, that was Laulyam. Laulya is intense greed. The Laulyam api Maulyamekam. So, similarly, Samutkantha. So, now these are not imitable characteristics. One may act as if one is eager for 1 day, 2 days. But unless one has a deep eagerness to attain Krishna, one will not be able to continue it day after day, month after month, year after year. These are all non-imitable, reliable symptoms. And like that, then there is Nama Gane Sadaruchi. That is constant desire to chant the glories of Krishna. So here, one of the associates of Radharani, that is from Krishna Karnamrita. Oh Lord Govinda, a girl who is the daughter of Krishna, of King Rishimana, is now shedding tears and she is anxiously chanting your holy names. Krishna, Krishna. So this is exhibiting the Nama Gane Sadaruchi of Srimati Radharani. And then there is eagerness to describe the Lord's transcendental qualities. This refers to so this is referring to first the names, and this is referring to generally the qualities, the pastimes, the eagerness to glorify the Lord. And then there is also a reference from Krishna. So Krishna Karnamrita, what is it actually? Krishna Karnamrita is a very ecstatic book which is written by Bilva Mangal Thakur, and in that he describes the pastimes of Krishna and especially the emotions and feelings of the great devotees of Krishna as they long for him and as they unite with him and as they serve him. And so Rupa Goswami is giving this also as a reference for us to understand what is the nature of ecstatic love for Krishna. And then Priti Tad Vasati Sthale. Priti Tad Vasati Sthale is attraction for living in a place where Krishna has his pastimes. So now this was earlier mentioned also as a... Now Prabhupada gives analysis for this. Elaborate analysis that... now earlier it was said that at this place Damodar, who can cut the knot of our material existence, was tied by his mother Yashoda. So this is describing how Krishna was so special. Krishna was tied over here. One is remembering, oh, this is such a wonderful place. I want to go there. I want to be there. So now earlier it was said that one should stay in the dham. That is important, no doubt. But that is a part of Vaidhi Bhakti. As a rule, one should do that, staying in the dham. But here it's different. Here one just has a spontaneous eagerness, intense longing, and almost intolerable craving. I just want to be there in the holy place. Priti tad vasati sthale. And then like this, the characters are described of one who is in love of God, one who has ecstatic love of God. Now after this, there is another thing which has been discussed, let's look at this a little bit more carefully. So, Dhamma, Gani, Sadaruchi, we discuss all these characteristics. Now, there is two kinds of ratyabhas. Rati means, ratyabhas is a reflection of bhava. And there are, what are these? Pratibimba and Chaya. Pratibimba and Chaya. What is it? So Prabhupada points to this when he says, this attachment is very confidentially kept by Krishna and bestowed only upon pure devotees. Even ordinary devotees cannot have such pure attachment to Krishna. Therefore, how is it possible for success to be achieved by persons whose hearts are contaminated by action and reaction of fruitive activities and who are entangled by various types of mental speculation? So let's try to understand this. Pratibimba namabhas and or Pratibimba ratyabhas and Chaya. So Pratibimba refers to reflection and Chaya refers to shadow. Now both these terms or concepts have the indication of some connection with reality but not the presence of reality. When I see a Pratibimba, when I see a reflection, that means the object is there somewhere but it's not in the reflection. And when I see a Chaya, a shadow, that means also the object is somewhere there but the shadow is not the object. So what is Rupa Goswami referring to here in Pratibimba and Chaya? He's basically saying that in the first case, sometimes some people who are primarily motivated for success in karma and jnana, they may practice bhakti to attain success in their respective paths. That means to attain success in karma or to attain success in jnana, they may think bhakti is a tool. If I do bhakti very intensely, then by that I will gain success. So they are using bhakti as a tool, and because they want the success in that particular path, they may practice bhakti intensely also. And by that, so such people with these motivations, when they come in the association of devotees, they may chant and dance, and they may also seem to experience ecstasy. So now because their motive is not pure, so the ecstasy that they experience is also not pure. It's contaminated. And that contamination is called as Pratibimba namabhas. So, or Pratibimba ratyabhas over it. Namabhas is specifically if they're chanting the holiness and they get that, that is namabhas. But otherwise it is ratyabhas. The rati is the emotions. Whatever the emotion they're experiencing, it's abhas. It's a reflection. It's not the real thing. So when one has an impure motive and then one chants, then the emotions that one experiences are also incomplete. They're not the full emotions. And these emotions are sometimes, by those who are undiscerning, they may mistake them, oh, these are very advanced emotions, but they are not. So the example is, we can give the example of Chaitanya Charitamrita. When Raghunath Bhatta Goswami was coming to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, at that time there was Ramdas Vishwas who came with him. He seemed to be a great Rama Bhakta, constantly chanting the name of Ram and doing all sorts of Bhakti Yoga. He wanted to carry the luggage of Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, and he was constantly chanting the names of Ram, and he did not want to do anything except Bhakti to Ram. But when he met Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not give much regard to him. And why was that? When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was asked, he said, he's chanting the name of Ram, but his goal is to become Ram. And this sort of devotion is not very pleasing to the Lord. So this is Pratibimba namabhas. When one is chanting, when one is doing bhakti, one is chanting the name, but one is not desiring to please Krishna. One wants to have impersonal oneness. So this is Pratibimba. And then a Chaya is when one is not yet purified. One may not have practiced bhakti seriously, but one just out of social convention or out of curiosity, one comes in the association of devotees and starts chanting, starts dancing, starts singing, and some person starts experiencing ecstasy. Sometimes we see that we sometimes perform Harinam Sankirtan, and devotees who have been in the movement for several years, they don't feel much ecstasy, but some new person comes and their eyes become so big and their face becomes so bright, and they seem to be experiencing more ecstasy than what the devotees are experiencing, those who have been practicing for many years. How is that? Actually, that is not really pure ecstasy, that is Chaya. So they're just getting a glimpse of that. It's a shadow. It is a shadow which they're experiencing. Why? Because in the association of devotees, the potency is there and a little potency rubs off on them. And that's how they experience. Now both are not the real thing. Neither the abhas, Pratibimba namabhas, or the Chaya. They are not the real thing. But they can act as precursors to the real thing if both of them can purify their hearts. So now among these two, relatively speaking, the Chaya is better, because one is not contaminated by a wrong motive. One is not using bhakti for some other purpose. Just come out of curiosity. or social convention. Social convention means, okay, it's a convention to dance, so let me also dance. Some comes along and dance. But then if one comes, how can one rise from this shadow or reflection to the real substance? That is by the association of devotees. If one associates with devotees, the devotees will inject pure desires in our heart. And by those pure desires, pure love will awaken, and one can come to the stage of ecstatic love of God. This is how one can attain perfection. And so Srila Prabhupada describes shadow attachment, chaya, as para-transcendental, even though shadow attachment is better than reflective attachment because there is less ulterior motive. And Prabhupada concludes by saying that if such attachment is seen manifest even in some common man by the association of pure devotee, it can bring one to the perfectional stage. But such attachment for Krishna cannot be invoked in a person without his being sufficiently blessed by the association of pure devotees. That means the more the association with the pure devotees, then what will happen? One will attain supreme perfection by that. So we'll continue this discussion in our next class, where we'll also discuss about prema, and then we'll conclude our discussion nectar of devotion. Thank you. Hare Krishna.